Hi guys, this is Jamal and today I'm going to give you a session on MVC design pattern. So to start with, what is MVC? MVC stands for models, views and controllers, and I'm very sure that most of you might have heard about this terminology, but there might be chances that you have not got an opportunity to work on any MVC based framework. And I'll be explaining everything related to MVC based on web applications, because I have worked on web applications for past 9 years. Okay, so back to the point, we were talking about MVC, where MVC stands for models, views and controllers. So what are models? Models are our business entities that encapsulates data. What does it mean? Basically, models are responsible for all database related operations. We define our queries in models, and whenever we need to store our data, we need to use models in order to fetch data from the database. Model is responsible. Now, the second term is the view. As the name itself says that view must be concerned about the presentation layer, and it is like you're absolutely correct. Views are basically concerned of rendering the HTML and CSS and JavaScript related stuff. Okay, the third term is the controller. Now, controller is the decision maker. Why do we call it a decision maker? Because it is responsible for making all decisions related to business logic, whether it is rendering a view file, or whether it is redirecting to a particular page, or sending a request to a model for getting some information. Okay, so it is the main decision maker of the whole MVC architecture based framework. Now, what is the advantage of using MVC over our conventional system of programming? The main benefit or the main advantage of using MVC is that we separate the business logic from the presentation layer. We are able to keep our business logic in a different file and directory, our presentation layer, the user interface, in a different directory, which is views, and our decision maker, the controllers, in a different directory. So that is the most important advantage of using an MVC design pattern. Second most important thing is that when a project comes for maintenance and it is developed using MVC, and you have to make small changes in that project, so it becomes really easy for you to make those changes. If you are required to make changes in HTML and CSS, you directly go to the view directory. If you're just required to make changes in database related operations, you directly go to the model directory and you make the changes. So that's the reason that MVC has really made our work very easy. Okay, now we'll be understanding things using a practical example. So let us try to understand the MVC request and response flow through this diagram. If you take a close look at this diagram, you'll find that there is a browser section, that is the user section, then the controller is there, model, view and the database part. Okay, so to start with, at first the browser basically sends a request to the controller. Okay, now controller, being the decision maker, decides whether to send the request to the model for getting some data from the database, or to directly render the view file. Okay, so on the basis of the request URL that it receives from the browser, it decides whether to process the request to the model or to directly render the view file. Now if the controller needs some data from the database, it will send a request to the model in order to get some data from the database. Even for storing or managing or updating or deleting data, the controller is going to send a request to the model, and the model will perform all database related operation in order to store or fetch certain data from the database. Further, the model returns the data back to the controller, or it may also return the response in the form of true or false or success or fail. Okay, and on the basis of response, the controller then process the view file. Then the view file is responsible for rendering any HTML, CSS or JavaScript to the browser. So you can see the whole chain of MVC design pattern, and it's so easy to understand the whole architecture. So I hope I tried my best to clear the concept of MVC design pattern. If you're still facing any problem, please don't hesitate to ask me your questions. Thank you and stay tuned.